called mashing. We add hot water to the grain and basically let it steep in here. The hot water and some of the mineral content of the water will release certain enzymes in the grain, which will break down the longer starch molecules, which takes something like cereal grains. Barley kind of tastes like wheat. So imagine it tastes like cereal before this stage, and then after this stage, it tastes very, very sweet because it breaks them down into shorter sugar molecule chains. And so the liquid that comes out of here is called wort. It's very sweet, it's very hot. And then you have a lot of what's called spent grain, just the sort of husks of the barley left over. It's really nutritious. You can eat it, you can bake it into pizza dough, you can give it to your livestock, use it as fertilizer. We used to give it to the chickens around the farm in Manitoba, and now we give it to the local farmers for free. They can do whatever they want with it. I'd like to convince some of the pizza places locally to bake it into the crust, but I don't know if they're going to do that. They don't even buy our beer yet. So it's a little stretch. From there, the wort gets pumped to the kettle here. Okay. This kettle over here, or this tank, is a water tank. This is where we add the hops, which are the bittering contrast to the sweet wort. We had 3 kinds of hops at Carakale. We had a northern brewer, which we get from central Germany. We had a hop from Kent in the UK, which gives the beer the kind of pine tree taste that's sort of an aftertaste or a mid-taste in both the blonde and the pale. And then at the very end, we add Cascade hops from Yakima Valley, Washington State in the US. And those add fruity tones, citrus tones. In the whiskey ale, they add the banana tones. That's a finishing hop. It's at the very last part of the boil. So basically, we bring the wort to a boil, and then we'd add, the northern brewer first, in the middle of the boil, the hop from Kent, and at the end, the Cascade hops. And it brings out different things about the essential oils that are in each hop. The first one basically just gives it its bittering flavor, and the other 2 give it more of its tones and flavors. So from there, you encounter one of the major problems with small-scale brewing, which is crash cooling. You have to get this boiling liquid to a pretty cool temperature pretty quickly, and in order to do that, originally we used this, what looks like a pile of trash back here, but it's actually a historic part of our museum here. Anyone know what that is? Recognize it?
It's water cooler.
Yeah, it's water cooler, yeah. So we use the coolant lines from the water cooler to cool it part way. For the rest of the way, we use the food-grade industrial coolant inside this heat exchanger here. So between the 2 of them, get it all the way down to where it needs to be. Basically, these are the kinds of things you have to do when you're starting a microbrewery in Jordan, and no one has any equipment to sell you, whether they would or not. From there, the beer goes into the fermenters, and this is where we add the yeast. Until this stage, the liquid is called wort, and it's non-alcoholic. But this is where the alcohol comes in. The yeast will turn the remaining sugars, or most of the remaining sugars, into CO2 and alcohol. This is the only stage of the brewing process where you have oxygen. The rest of the brewing process, you don't want oxygen at all, but here it helps the yeast metabolize the sugars. So basically, the beer just sits in here with the yeast for a couple of weeks until it's ready. But you have to have a consistent temperature during that process, otherwise you'll get off flavors with the beer. In order to figure out how to do that, because normally fermenters come with things which allow you to keep the temperature consistent, Yezin was sort of wandering one day from First Circle down to the city, down to the Beled, past that street full of pet shops, if you guys know it, and he wandered past the place called Jaffa Pets and saw that they had fish tanks outside. Fish tanks also need a consistent water temperature, or else the fish will die in a lot of cases. And so basically he just bought a bunch of fish tank parts, incorporated them into this big welded box, and one British journalist has dubbed this the fermentarium, which sounds a lot better than welded box full of fish tank parts, but that's basically what it is. And then, after it's finished, basically you'll get a lot of bubbling at a certain point in this process, and then it'll go down and be maturing for a while, developing better flavors and things like that. After that process is finished, the beer is done. It's unfiltered, but it's perfectly good and drinkable. What you're drinking right now is unfiltered. So this was the original system in Madaba, and that system out there is exactly the same, except it's 20 times larger. This is a 2.5 barrel system, that's a 50 barrel system. Let me